it was in my mind for a couple of years already. It just took me some time to really decide that I should make a movie about triad, because there were so many triad movies around in Hong Kong. For some time, almost every movies in Hong Kong were about triads, particularly after the success of A Better Tomorrow. And I think it was sometime around the date when I was planning the final options, and I was researching on police matters, and I also got in touch with a lot of triad materials, and I thought maybe this should be one topic that I can write on, and so it was a couple of years.
你個肺啊，去邊度啊？呢邊啊！走人！
Me and Dante have been working together for many years. It was a relationship a bit more than 10 years, I guess. He was my assistant director. Before that, he was an assistant producer in my film, and I personally picked him up to really train him up to be a director. And even before the Beast Cop, let's say in Final Option or the first option, then they have been taking up bits and pieces of actions, scenes that I let him do his own directing. And he would just follow some instruction of mine, some idea of mine, and then he do his own things. And he became so confident after then that I think it's time for him to really get up and direct his own film. He did one film, the G4, which I thought was good enough, but we were facing a very tough market situation then. I think it was the worst time of Hong Kong film industry when we started Beast Cop. The pirated VCD sales were so high, and we were almost certain that unless we drastically cut the cost of Beast Cop, otherwise we won't survive. So I end up have to cut my salary in a very large portion, and to justify that, we came up with the ideas. Well, Dante has been helping me already, so to justify that cut of salary and the fact that I'm going to let Dante do a little bit more, let's go direct. We were boring at that Hummer. We did a lot of things to prevent that Hummer from being damaged. So the racing scene between the Hummer and the bus was in fact the whole thing was special effects. Few people recognize that in fact in real life that Hummer never get together with the bus. It was two separate elements, and we just put them together, and that was tough because, like I told you, the budget of Beast Cop was way lower than what should be, because of the situations of the Hong Kong cinema at that time, and it was really tough for us. Michael is a very straightforward guy, which makes him perfect for the role. And the very fact that after the final options, I always try to get a little bit more out of the cop thing. Like he could be Stone in the final option, or Wang She in the first option, but whatever he did, I was I still had in mind that I can get a little bit more out of Michael. And the Beast Cop was one of the attempts. He's a symbol of righteousness. He was a symbol of good cop. He was a symbol of how the best cop could behave. And this is why I need him, particularly in the Beast Cop, when I need him to contrast all the other cops, which was Anthony Wong and Sam Lee, and which he did well.
喂，東哥，乜咁早上？咩事啊，東哥？阿奇落咗開咩 number？ 我知道好啦。唔知？知啊？揸完個嗱踢多腳得㗎啦。真係唔知道喎。啊，踢多腳得啦，大聲啲。
He was one of the best actors around. I think everybody agrees. And before Armageddon, I never worked with him. And even Armageddon, he was so surprised because when I picked him up for the role of Armageddon, he was basically laid off. He was considered a good actor, but bad for the box office, a great starring role for some C-grade movie in Hong Kong, and that's it. But I had a very good time with him in Armageddon, and the fact that I cast him in the G4 as a leading role for Dante just gave me a lot of confidence in him. And I must say the Beast Cop was particularly catered for him. When I look at him and Michael Wong, I know what I can do with these two characters. I was such a close friend with him. I almost knew everything about him. I was the first one to know about his illness, and at the height of his illness, he was doing G4. He was so afraid that he thought I would change the role of G4 and put somebody else in place, but I didn't. And I was telling him the look doesn't count for him, particularly as an actor. He never used his look as what he was trying to do. It was his acting that was so impressive. So after then, I was simply having so much confidence in him, and the very fact that he placed a lot of trust on me after then was very important. He was that guy. During the shooting of the film, he basically morphed into that character that I was creating. And the very fact that he was doing it at a very unpretentious way was it was not hard acting. It was just it is, and it was so relaxed all along the way, and that is very difficult, considering the role that the complexity of the role. I think he handled that perfectly. before Beast Cop, I always considered Patrick as one of the most underrated actor, and he is still one of the most underrated actor, even though he won the Best Supporting Actor award. Patrick was a veteran of TV drama. Always played the bad guy. He wasn't a big idol character, but he is one of the best actors around. And he wasn't able to get any good role, so to speak. But I noticed him for at least 5 years before Beast Cop. I was always trying to find an occasion, just give me one chance to bring up Patrick Tam. And it was that occasion. I didn't even talk to him when I cast him in that role. I just told my producers, get Patrick Tam, tell him he's in. And I thought Patrick was so surprised. We never met before. But that was it. I was so sure about him.
Just wait a minute!
There were reports in magazines in Hong Kong magazines that the pirated VCD of that film was huge. They sold more than 20,000 copies a day in one complex, and that was so disappointing for us. And that was, I think that accounts for one of the reasons of why the box office wasn't really good, that good in Hong Kong. But in addition to that, it wasn't a really commercial film. I must admit it. The way I should be sculpted, in a way that I throw all the commercial elements or commercial calculation out of the window, because I cannot calculate anymore. I cannot foresee any market situations. I could not estimate what the sales could be. So it was pretty much a lot more personal piece than what I did for a couple of years. So I think both of these elements accounts for the lack of good sales in Hong Kong. I was expecting a script awards. I was always expecting a script awards because at that time, a lot of scripts were finished, so to speak. A lot of films were having very big problem on scripts, and I thought that script was, when compared with other stuff, that year was pretty outstanding. But I never expect all the other awards, except the awards for Anthony, because he was so good in that role, and everybody was saying that Anthony should win the award. But besides that, I was so surprised. You have to understand that ever after John Woo, not one action film won that many awards, and not one action film were being appreciated by the critics. Action films were always considered as commercial and cast as not. Artistic value will always evaluate at the second class. And the fact that I co-direct with Dante also attribute to the fact that it would be very difficult for people to gave us the award. But they did, and I was so surprised.